Does this scenario sound familiar to you? You walk into a fabric store and there's aisles upon aisles of fabrics to the ceilings, all kinds of random names, but absolutely no indication of what the fabrics actually are. Or maybe you're shopping online, the menu is bigger than the screen itself, and I mean, seriously, who came up with all these names anyways? Well, good news, it doesn't have to be this way. I have found the key to understanding fabrics is knowing three things. First, how is it made? Number two, what is it made out of? And three, how is it finished? Editing Corn, I'm excited to tell the people, so hit that intro. Let's keep this thing moving. My name's Cornelius Quiring. That's my logo. That's my word mark. And Cornelius.ooh is my website. To better understand how fabrics are made, I want to break it down into three categories. We have our woven fabrics, knits, and then everything else I'm going to bunch into an other category. Let's start off with woven. A woven fabric quite simply means that we take a whole bunch of yarns and we interlace them with each other. We have the ones that go up and down. Those are called the warp yarns. And then the ones that go left to right, which are weft yarns. Now, I'll be saying weft and warp quite a bit, so to remember it, well, Bugs Bunny can help us out. Weft threads go weft and white. And then thanks to Instagram viewers, I realized that the warp threads can be remembered by Star Trek, in that we would say, hey, Scotty, beam me up at warp speed. Warp up and down. I think it works. Now, woven fabrics can be broken down into another three subcategories. And in fact, Editing Corn, we're going to need some sort of a tiered list here to make sense of it all so we don't lose our place. All right? Up first, we have ourselves the plain weave. The plain weave is the simplest of the bunch. We have our left to right weft yarn here, and it goes over one of the warp yarns. It then goes underneath the next one, over again, under again, and so on and so forth. With the next row, I just go ahead and stagger that by one. So this time I go under first, then I go over, back under again, over, under, and you're pretty clever. I think you know where this goes. Do a few more rows and we end up with this checkerboard sort of a pattern. So whenever you see a fabric that has a nice, even, consistent texture like this, you know you've got yourself a plain weave. And best of all, it's exactly the same on both sides, which means no right or wrong side when cutting out the pattern pieces. This is a classic, versatile, durable weave with all that interlacing of yarns. It holds everything nicely in place, and that friction prevents it from ripping and tearing. Well, actually, if we have a very super light yarn and we weave it tightly, that friction can actually start to tear it itself. But Editing Corn, we're getting lost in the weeds. Let's keep it moving. Now, fabric makers can have a little bit of fun with this weave. Instead of doing just one yarn in each direction, why not do two perhaps? Two is stronger than one, and the exact reason why canvas fabric has two weft yarns for that extra durability. Perhaps we do two up and two to the side. Well, now we've got a basket weave, and I've done a whole video about it just for members. Or we can take things in the complete opposite direction and have a really thin yarn. We space the weave out quite a bit, and that's how we end up with things like organzas, chiffons, batistes like I'm wearing here. Cotton to be specific. This stuff, so light and breathable, the perfect way to wear black in the summer. Editing Corn. Oh. Let's move on to the twill weave. With a twill weave, we go over multiple rows of warps before going under one and then back again. So I'm going to start by going over 2, under 1, over another 2, under 1, and just keep repeating that over and over. With the next row, I just stagger that back by 1. So this time, I'm going to go under this one, over 2 again, under 1, over 2, under 1, and back under again. Repeat this multiple times and we start to see these diagonal lines. Now, where have we seen this most commonly on fabric? Why, denim in our jeans, of course. It's important to note that it doesn't exclusively have to be a 2-to-1 ratio. A very common form of twill actually does a 2-to-2. So it goes over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over, and back under again. Stagger that back by 1 in each subsequent row, and we still continue to get those very recognizable diagonal lines. But I want to return to the denim I briefly mentioned earlier. It has a similar pattern to this one, a 3-to-1 ratio, so 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. But instead of going under 1 over 2, it instead goes under 2 and then over 1, under 2 and then over 1. So with denim, we end up seeing a lot more of the up and down warp yarns than we do the weft. And so this is considered a warp facing fabric. The front or face of the fabric has mostly warps, hence warp facing. And this would be considered weft facing. Warp facing, weft facing, keep it in mind. We'll bring it up again later and who knows, might be a quiz on it too. There's no quiz. But let's zoom back out and look at twills as a whole again. Twills have the perfect balance between durability, but also beautiful drape and flow, because there's a little less friction with slightly less interlacing of the yarns. It's why we use twills so much for making clothes. Bit like Cornelia's beautiful vintage-inspired 3/4 length circle skirt here, which I just so happen to have a new course for, all for less than 20 bucks. Just go to cornelius.oo/skirt. Marketing Corn, are you happy? Been a little heavy on the promo here. I'm calling it no more until the end. Here again, fabric makers and fiber artists can get fancy with it and use those diagonal lines that show up to create interesting patterns. That's where we get herringbone and houndstooth from. Common examples of twill fabric are cotton twill, pretty self-explanatory. You've got chino fabrics, you've got drill, gabardine is apparently another one. And finally, we've got ourselves a satin weave. And yes, a satin is a weave and not a type of fabric. Correct. This guy didn't know it either until recently. I like to think of the satin weave as a twill weave on steroids, in that it goes under a minimum of 3, above 1, back under 3 again, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm going to do 4 in my example. I'm going to go underneath 4 of the warp yarns, above 1, and then back underneath 4 again. I'll be staggering by 2 in my example here. A little TV magic, and we end up with something like this, where we have nice long strings of warp visible and very little of the weft. Surprise! There's a quiz after all. Is this a warp or weft facing fabric? 3, 2, 1, it's a warp facing fabric. Satins are most often warp facing fabrics. Another common ratio would be to go underneath 7 of them, above 1, back under 7, above 1. There's even an example on Wikipedia where we go underneath 14, above 1, underneath 14 and above 1. It's this loose interlacing of yarns that makes it absolutely gorgeous on the body, but also why it's a pain in the butt to sew and snag so easy. Some examples of satins are charmeuse, antique satin, Duchess satin, slipper satin, poly satin, something, 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 satin. Moving on to knit fabrics. And the biggest difference here is whereas woven fabrics, is it woven or woven? I keep messing it up. It doesn't matter. We've moved on. We're on knit fabrics, which are not woven, and instead are looped. How do I show that? Are looped together. And because of this looping, they naturally have a little more stretch, or mechanical stretch, as it's called. Whereas the other stuff we just talked about has a lot less of that natural stretch in it. I should have mentioned that earlier, but it made more sense combined talking about it now. Too many production notes. T-shirts are a common example of a knit fabric. T-shirts are often made out of a jersey fabric. Why is it called jersey? Because it came from the Jersey Islands. Researching fabrics, you realize so much of their names has to do with their history and where they came from. And so if you feel very confused by the many names you see, don't feel bad. It rarely makes sense. It's somewhere in its past. Knit fabrics also have weft and warp, but weft knit fabric is by far the most common. Warp knit fabrics are used more commonly for swimwear and lingerie, according to the internet. But this stuff looks much more confusing and honestly a little above my pay grade, so if you want to know more, consult an expert. Sweatshirt knit is another popular example. Here, they add extra loops on the inside and then brush it to rip it open, hence that fuzzy texture on the inside. A double knit is literally just 2 layers of knit fabric that have been, for lack of a better term, sewn together to create a thicker material. If you ever get this stuff, try peeling it apart. It's kind of interesting. A rib knit is done in a way where it has this sort of up and down ribbed texture. So that way there's even more natural, mechanical stretch in it. And finally, others. And this is a bit of a catch-all here. An example of an other would be felted fabric. When we're felting, we're essentially tangling, knotting, matting together a whole bunch of little fibers to create our fabric. A good example of this would be wool. And I'm simplifying things here a bit, but it's scaly and kind of has almost little teeth-like on the wool fibers. And so those are perfect for tangling in with each other to create a nice, thick, felted fabric. Neoprene, on the other hand, is more of a man-made material, waterproof and great for wetsuits. Or if you glue some knit on each side, it's technically considered a fabric, and you can make yourself one of those gorgeous throwback early 2000s peplum wavy tops to highlight your gorgeous silhouette and figure. Remember those? Now that we know how our fabric is made, we want to know what it's made out of. And guess what? Once again, 3 categories. Natural fibers, synthetics, semi-synthetics, and actually I need to throw in a bonus here because, well, I got to keep you interested in watching somehow, right? Plus it'd throw off my whole 3 little scheme I've got going. Anyways, natural fibers. When someone's talking about natural fibers, they most often mean things like cottons, wools, linens, silks, those sorts of things. And they come from plants and often the hairs off of animals. In the case of silk, it's the cocoon of a silkworm. Folks like to choose natural fibers because they're renewable in a sense. But not only that, they come with a lot of great inherent benefits, like a cotton, which is just super versatile. A wool is extra warm and moisture wicking and antimicrobial. Silks, oh, ever so luxurious. Linens are very durable. Next up, synthetics. Now these are the man-made things. Think polyesters. Basically, plastics. Polyester starts out as this goopy type material which is pushed through a tiny little spout called a spinneret. Interestingly, spinneret, same name for the little poop chute on a spider that pushes out its silky web-like material. I don't know, take that one to the pub quiz with you. This strand is then textured and crimped and all sorts of things to give it more of a hair-like texture, where it can then be twisted into a yarn and made into a fabric. Now, polyester is often used because it's a little bit more cost-effective, cheaper alternative. Not much loved in the sewing community, but it does have its place, like in threads, for example. It's a bit more durable than a cotton, and why most sewing threads are made of polyester these days. Other synthetic materials include nylon, acrylic, which is often a wool substitute, spandex, which is known for its very elastic and stretching capabilities. Fun fact, polyesters are also ever so slightly harsher on your fabric shears because at the end of the day, you're still cutting a plastic. But honestly, not something to be too worried about. Semi-synthetic means that we take some sort of a natural material and then treat it with a chemical to make it into a fabric. So, rayon, sometimes called viscose, is semi-synthetic. It starts out as a wood pulp, is treated with a neurotoxic chemical so that it can then become pliable enough to be used as fabric. Some alternatives in the semi-synthetic world would be a lyocell or a modal, perhaps. And finally, the bonus item, which is dun, 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 blends. The hint was in the bees. There's no shortage of different blends that you can get, like say a cotton wool blend. You're going to get a little bit of that moisture wicking warmth of the wool with the versatility of the cotton. Very popular is cotton polyester blends. This helps save on costs. Popular with bed sheets. Elastic in cottons is a good way to add some stretch. So if you ever see a 2-3% stretch in your cotton, it makes it very comfortable to wear. Once our fabric comes off the loom, it's far from complete. It still has to go through various stages until it becomes the material we buy at the store. These are called finishes, and finishes can be both for functional reasons, but also aesthetic. Functional examples are scouring, and this is a chemical and heat treatment to remove impurities like waxes, oils, and flakes left over from the plant. There's singeing, where we're literally burning off the fuzzes, and this makes for a smoother fabric, but also better for dye uptake and printing and stuff. There's mercerizing, and this is a caustic soda bath, which tightens up the fibers of the yarn for a more durable fabric, but also gives it a little bit of a sheen and luster to it, so this could be considered functional and aesthetic. It's dyed, it's printed on, it's brushed, it's, well, any number of things can be done. So this is why often a cotton can be shiny, for example, but then be completely matte or even fuzzy in a different scenario. Finishes. Now, I've barely scratched the surface of the fabric topic, but hopefully I've given you a framework that helps you think about fabric rather than just being confused and overwhelmed by the countless names of different fabrics out there that make absolutely no sense. Often having multiple names for the same thing, like that cotton batiste I was telling you earlier, also sometimes called cotton lawn. I like to ask myself, how's it made? What's it made out of? And are there any special finishes that change the fabric? And now I pass the talking scissors over to you. How have you managed to make the overwhelming world of fabrics understandable for yourself? Or perhaps you just have an interesting fabric factoid you'd like to share? Do put it in the comments below. I know I'm always looking to learn more, and I'm sure other viewers are going to learn plenty as well. A big ol' thank you to Quality Sewing for their ongoing support of what we're doing here. Don't forget to use my coupon code CORN at checkout to save 10% off your entire order. Might I also interest you in the Corn Cob Club? What is it? Well, It's a monthly membership that gives you access to exclusive content, like that basket weave video I was talking about, ginormous discounts on my courses, skirts, anyone? There's a group chat. This past week we were talking about how we store our patterns, and well, it turns out a lot of folks are digital, so this guy's the old school one. Or you could even be one of the lucky folks that gets their name in the video, like these people. A massive thank you to everyone who is already a member. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. If you're interested, just head on over to this URL right here, or click the join button here on YouTube. All right. Well, that's that. I'm going to hang for a little bit to give you a chance to click on this video or whatever I have here, whatever Posting Corn did, and make eye contact. Okay, getting weird, so bye.